Recording. All right. So when I say good morning, whether you're in person or watching us online, I need you to say good morning back. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is awake and ready to receive the information that you are going to get today, and welcome you to the Diversity Champions Forum. My name is Jade. I serve as the Economic Empowerment Chair for the Dallas-Fort Worth Urban League Young Professionals, where I have the pleasure of leading a powerful team of young professionals to host and collaborate on events that encourage and promote financial leadership and economic empowerment like this one here today. Thank you to the J3 Collaboration Projects and their team for allowing DFWYP young professionals to host this event at our home location at Pegasus Park, as well as the team here at Pegasus Park for their accommodations and supporting YP in all of our initiatives. Now, before I introduce you to one of today's moderators, I want to take a quick moment to share a little bit about the DFW Urban League Young Professionals. The Dallas-Fort Worth chapter of Urban League is an award-winning chapter, and we have a mission to enable African Americans and urban communities to secure economic self-reliance, party power, and civil rights. We are an auxiliary of the Houston Area Urban League, as well as the National Urban League Young Professionals. And we have committed to supporting the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex through service, civic leadership, and leadership development. And so, as I mentioned before, this is our home location here at Pegasus Park, where we host our monthly general body meetings. And I want to invite all of you to join us on Tuesday, April 4th, for our next meeting titled YP on the Road. We will host a candidates forum introducing you to the candidates who are running for this year's municipal elections. April 6th is the last day to register to vote. So if you are a Dallas County resident and you have moved and have not updated your information, I will be here with voter registration cards to make sure that your information is up to date and that your voice can be heard in this year's election and those to come. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to one of today's moderators. He has over 20 plus years of experience in the telecom industry, and in 2010, deep dove into the world of franchising. He has held the titles of Chief Development Officer, Franchise Consultant, and is now the Franchise Development Director for Homewell Care Services. And without further ado, please welcome Mr. Jack Wilson.
Well, thank you very much, Jade, and welcome. Welcome to all of you who are here in attendance and those who are joining us from around the world on YouTube. We're happy to have you. Well, one of the things I want to do first is thank a few people. I want to thank J3 really for selecting me to co-moderate this important event. The J3 Collaboration Project is a unique marketing platform, and it has a three-pronged approach. And I want to make sure I slow down so you can understand these, because these are critical for J3 and the thrust of everything J3 does. It's first, supporting and enabling business ownership for African Americans, Hispanics, and women. Second, advocating business ownership diversity. And third, making an impact on our respective communities. Now, this J3 expert team brings decades of business experience and initiative as your champions of diversity. And J3 works with franchisors, franchise consultants, as well as those considering owning a franchise. I do want to acknowledge the guy that's called the visionary, came all the way from Portugal to actually be here in Irving, Texas, Johnny Romero. And Johnny, along with the Self Esteem Brands, spearheaded this Project 23, the Minority Franchise Ownership Initiative. And this event is really happening due to the hard work of the J3 team, the energy, passion, and expertise of the guests that you'll see today, the host, the City of Dallas Franchise Initiative, and others. And finally, I want to thank the company who I represent, Homewell Care Services, for supporting me in this event. Now, one of the goals of our event today is to educate our attendees and our viewers on franchising, the opportunities that franchising offers, and key players in the world of franchising. I have the pleasure of introducing one of those key players, Earsa Jackson. I'm going to do more than introduce her. I'm going to give a little bit of info on her. So Earsa is an attorney with the law firm Clark Hill, and she structures franchises and assists franchisors with transactional needs. She also litigates cases related to business and commercial claims, the False Claims Act, trademark infringement, and trade secrets. She serves as a chair for the firm's franchise and licensing team and the chair of the firm's diversity committee. Earsa structures franchises and assists franchisors with ongoing transactional needs. She's a certified franchise executive. She writes and speaks extensively on franchise issues and is a member of the governing committee of the American Bar Association Forum on Franchising. She's also a former director of the Litigation and Dispute Resolution Division for the American Bar Association Forum on Franchising. Didn't I tell you she was a player? Let's hear from Earsa.
Thank you, Jack, and good morning. I bring you greetings from the International Franchise Association, the IFA Diversity Institute, and the Black Franchise Leadership Council. As Jack said, I've got a long history in franchising, but my real driver is building legacy and expanding franchising to underrepresented communities. Just a little bit about the International Franchise Association. It is the largest franchise association in the world representing franchising. I have the pleasure to currently serve on the board for the International Franchise Association. I also serve on the board for the IFA Foundation, under which the Diversity Institute sits. As we wanted to further the mission of diversifying franchising with the Diversity Institute, we quickly realized that having a targeted approach was the way to go. And so we set about starting affinity groups. In February of 2021, we launched the Black Franchise Leadership Council. And the Black Franchise Leadership Council's sole mission is really to take the message of franchising to Black entrepreneurs, whether you are starting a franchise, whether you're buying a franchise, or whether you are a company looking to find diverse talent. Black Franchise Association, Black Franchise Leadership Council is the place for you. We have essentially 4 pillars: education and learning. We have community partnerships, marketing and outreach, and access to capital. Yours truly, Jack Wilson, actually heads up that. So if you want to know more about what the Black Franchise Leadership Council is doing with the access to capital, that's your man. I want to just highlight 2 events that are upcoming. We do events like this across the country. Our next Black Franchise Leadership Council meeting is May 26th. I would love to get you more information on that. We also will do a Juneteenth virtual celebration on June the 16th. Membership is available to anyone who is interested from a franchisee perspective, franchisor perspective, or from a supplier perspective. But I am delighted to bring you greetings. You've got a great program that's been put together for you. I'd love to be a resource for anyone here. Thank you so much, Jack.
All right. Well, thank you. Honestly, that was really nice to hear, Earsa. There's so many things going on. We're so happy to have you here today. So what's today about? Well, the name tells it all. It's the Minority Franchise Ownership Initiative. Business ownership in general is one of the best ways to lay a foundation for building a family legacy and to start one on the path to creating generational wealth. We're here today because we believe that franchising is a viable path to business ownership. Here's just a few facts. Franchising is a major part of the U.S. economy with over 800,000 franchise locations in the United States. More than 25% of franchises are owned by people of color compared to just 17% of independent businesses. And on average, Black-owned franchises earn 2.2 times more profit than their independent counterparts. Now, within the world of franchising, there's lots of support organizations. Earsa mentioned some of them, like the IFA, the International Franchise Association, the IFA Foundation Diversity Institute, the Black Franchise Leadership Council. So what's success look like today? After the conclusion of this, we hope you take away these two things at least. First, a clear understanding that franchise is a viable path to business ownership. And second, there are people, organizations, role models, and tools to help you explore and attain business ownership in the world of franchising. Now, we're going to hear from some of that help that we just discussed. We're going to listen to Carlos White. He's heading up the Dallas Mayor's franchise initiative. Carlos is a transactional attorney that specializes in optimizing business systems and structuring domestic and international franchising and licensing agreements. Currently, Carlos serves as a partner at Lathrop GPM, a firm that was named the 2021 Best Franchise Law Firm in the World by Global Franchise Magazine. Carlos has been recognized multiple times by D Magazine as one of the best franchise lawyers in Dallas. Economic development and business mentoring are passions for Carlos, and he has served on various economic development boards throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Recently, Carlos has been tapped as Franchise Impact Ambassador by Mayor Eric Johnson of Dallas. In this role, he will lead the mayor's first of its kind franchise initiative that showcases Dallas as a global leader in franchising and a preeminent hub for creating, incubating, and scaling racially and ethnically diverse franchise businesses. Let's give our attention to Carlos.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great day. It's absolutely a pleasure to be a part of this particular event and J3 collaboration for what they're doing with respect to franchising. Again, my name is Carlos White, but this program is not about me. It's about you all, right? It's important to recognize the importance of franchising as a potential vehicle to help create economic development opportunity and job creation. And in that vein, that's one of the reasons why we developed the Mayor Eric Johnson's franchise initiative. It's so important that before we start getting into specifics about the program, that we acknowledge and they're so thankful to have a mayor like Mayor Eric Johnson with respect to his innovative type program. This is this first of a kind. Throughout his administration, he recognized the importance and intersection of franchising, job creation, and economic development. And that's one of the reasons why we helped develop this franchise initiative. Right now, I think it's important to call upon, because it's important, I think, for people to actually hear from folks that actually done it, as opposed to me claiming how great franchising is. And fortunately, in our audience, we have Tim Williams from Williams Chicken, and we also have Calvin Golden from Wingstop, who helped create the first franchise program from Wingstop. So if you don't mind, I would like for them to come up and kind of give some insights with respect to how important franchising has been to them from a franchisor's perspective, as well as a franchisee's perspective. Tim, first.
Thank you, Carlos. I didn't realize I would be speaking, but anytime I get a chance to speak on franchise, I don't pass up. First, I want to say good morning to a lot of people that I know from the IFA. Probably most of you know that I do sit on the board along with Ms. Esler with the IFA, and it's a couple members of the IFA. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I've been part of IFA for at least since 2005. It's been a big part of me and my growth in how to be a franchisor. Williams Chicken has been in operation for the last 35 years. We've been franchising about 15 of those 35. So it's been my job and my charge to lead the franchise division of Williams Chicken, along with my great attorney here, Carlos White. He have helped me on a lot of legal side of it. So it's always important to have a good team put together. I tell potential franchise partners, and someone's in the franchise that's interested in the franchise industry, first put your good team together. You need a good CPA, you need a good attorney, so you can navigate some of these roads. And also a banker, so you navigate some of these roads that you're going to need to as you go down this road as a franchisee or a franchisor. I'm not going to talk a whole bunch, but it's great seeing a lot of my friends and people that I know and I consider co-workers, co-board members, co-chairs. So, Carlos, if you don't have any other questions, I'm good.
Thank you, Tim. Can Calvin Golden please stand? Please come to the microphone, please. Thanks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Calvin Golden, and I'm a resident of Dallas. I want to welcome all of you here that's not a resident of this fine city of ours. And I was just thinking about how long I've been in the franchise business. But I've been doing this thing for about 35 years now. And I started in franchise in 1988 as a franchise salesperson. I sold a service franchise for many years, and we were on the road, and I traveled a lot. This is way before 9/11. So I could literally walk through many of these airports like LaGuardia, O'Hare, DFW, blindfold. I travel so much. I mean, I literally got a letter, one of my coveted pieces, from Bob Crandall, who was the CEO of American Airlines, saying, "Congratulations, you're the second platinum card issued in the DFW area." Now, people think that's good. All of you all who don't travel, okay? So all my travel friends, you can understand what I'm talking about. So I was selling franchises and enjoying franchises and enjoying selling franchises, became very effective at selling franchises, was doing quite well financially at selling franchises. However, in 1989, I started to travel a lot, and I just got road weary. And I wanted an opportunity to come back home. And I took a job here in Dallas selling franchises locally that led me to Oklahoma City, which led me to the most transformational part of my life. And that's in 1997. I received a call from a gentleman telling me about a young man who had a concept in Dallas, didn't know what to do with it. This franchise attorney didn't want to deal with this guy because he was more trouble than he was worth. He was a young entrepreneur, and he had this wild idea. He thought he could make a fortune selling hot wings. Who would have thought of that? This is 1997. No one took wings seriously then. Wings were a bar food at best. So I answered the call. My lights were almost out in Oklahoma City where I was working. I just didn't know it yet. You know, I was a pink slip walking and didn't have any idea. Until that day came, I answered the call, and I took a job with two other gentlemen trying to develop a concept. And all of my friends thought I was crazy. This concept was called Wingstop. I wrote the first franchise opportunity for Wingstop and developed that business format for Wingstop. Got so excited selling those franchises from absolutely nothing but one little small store about 30 miles from here in Garland, Texas, that was open from 4 to midnight. Now, you probably think if you're going to sell a restaurant franchise, you have to have affinity for the restaurant business. Guys, I did. I'm not that guy that cooks good barbecue. I look like I am, but I'm not. I'm not that guy that does good burgers of fish. I'm not. I'm just that guy that knew an opportunity that could grow, and I could see it, and I could see me doing it. So of the first 13 franchises I sold personally, I bought a store number 5. And I put that store not far from here in the inner city, in a community that was known for a high demographic of African Americans. That store, not only did it succeed, that store exploded. That's when franchise opportunity, economic opportunity became real for me. Now, the good news is you're making money. The bad news is you're too busy to do anything with it. So you have to start developing your systems. And one store eventually led to a dozen stores that I operated. And from that, I was trying to be a franchisor and a franchisee at the same time. So I eventually had to say farewell to my franchisor days and run a multi-million-dollar operation of my own. The bottom line is, for those who are interested in franchising, I am a major fan of saying it can be done. And franchising is a game changer. No question about it. When you talk about wealth, Tim can tell you about it. Anyone that's franchised business can tell you about it. But all you have to do is stay consistent, stay competitive, build a strong infrastructure, keep your eye on your profit margin, though you're not in this thing for free. And franchising works. So I can talk all day about franchising. I want to thank Carlos for the opportunity, but it's been a game changer for me. I literally transitioned in December. I've been doing this 26 years. Wingstop is a publicly traded company now. Corporate called me and said, listen, how much money would it take for you to leave? A couple of emails went back and forth. The last email did it. I brought them the keys. Thank you.
I really appreciate Tim and Calvin for joining us. I think it's important because a lot of organizations, a lot of people talk about franchising generically, but they don't give you any specific nuance folks that's actually done it and didn't have to be a rapper nor have to play sports to do it. So I thought that it was so important that we highlight that fact, which goes into why we have the Mary Johnson's Franchise Initiative in Dallas, because we have these particular assets. Dallas is an international city. We have a large number of franchisors. We have at least 8 or 9 franchisees that have over 50 million in revenues. You have your Calvin Goldings, you have your Tim Williams, that's someone that looks like me that can, in order to be successful, as opposed to just talking about generic terms. Organizations are great, but it's about the people. How do we go about connecting the right people so we can build a grassroots effort in order to grow and scale? I think franchising is a game changer. But as with any business model, it's not perfect. So I think one of the things we also need to be able to recognize is what are some of the things that we need to look for in connection with getting into the franchising game. And I want to ask Tim and Calvin just a generic question with respect to anytime with franchising, you have this disclosure document. From Tim's perspective, can you provide me your thoughts regarding how you were able to basically put together your systems together in order to create a franchise system that has helped create a Rainbow Coalition of Millionaires?
Well, Carlos, it went so much as me. I was bright enough to put a good team together. So for Williams, when Mr. Williams came out of the church's background, so when he saw I walk out of church, he saw Williams Chicken. He left, and I met Mr. Williams. He had 2 stores. Just kind of give you an idea of the background of this. And my passion at the time, kind of like a different route from Calvin. Mine was financial real estate. I was a commercial real estate agent. Actually, I was part of that first store that Calvin that put it over in Winwood Chopperson, I believe. Correct. Yeah. Brad Quine was the broker for Brad and I worked together at his dad's firm. I was probably one of 2 African Americans in the commercial industry, leasing and selling in Dallas, Texas. And the other guy was an All-American basketball player out of SMU. So I was fortunate to meet Calvin in his younger days, and we kind of happened to grow together. But far as Williams Chicken is that the IFA did lots for me, taught lots, because I had nowhere to go. Who you want to ask? Calvin. He crossed the world. But he did ask us a question. So I went through the IFA program, CFE, and learned how to do this franchise, but I always kept in mind, keep a good team. So I ran Mr. Carlos White, and that's when I really began to help grow the franchise. So it's no miracles, nothing special. It's just what you put into it. And if you decide to put the energy and the effort to surround yourself with a good team and be part of some great organization, then you'll learn lots, then you'll grow. African American will get some of the opportunity that some of our non-African American franchise brands do. Don't get it free. You're not going to get that phone call. Somebody tell you how, hey, I want to build out California. I want to build out Oklahoma. You're not going to get that phone call. You get the phone call, can I buy you? You will get that phone call. So it depends on which road you decide you want to go in this franchise industry. But I have 17 franchise partners. I can safely say Williams Chicken probably have made 5 millionaires through our franchise system. And so I know that it can happen. It's just if you really put the work in. It doesn't come easy. We travel lots now, and we speak a lot now, and we donate and give back a lot. And that's really what's going to get us to that next leg of franchise development and become a franchisee and franchisor. We put together a program where we take people in. We put them in a 6 months to a year training program. At that point, then they begin to come out as a franchisee. And most of them are able to be the franchisee of the store that they train in or that they learn in. So that's how we're going to grow. And I say we, Williams, that's probably how we're going to grow the franchise. Every now and then I get a phone call, but I'm not expecting it. So we have to learn how to grow our own. And this is a good way, a good opportunity to learn how to grow your own.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tim, for that insight. I know we're running short on time. Okay, thank you. Well, then, if that's the case, then no. But I think it's so important that one of the things that drew me to franchising is respect that it's a business model that is transparent. What other type of business model in which you have to have a disclosure and things along those lines? I've done a lot of M&A deals, and we do diligence in 90 days, but there's no guidepost with respect to what the system is and what it isn't. So it's definitely a blessing that you have that type of disclosure that's available so that you can help make an informed decision. And with that in mind, I just want to ask Calvin, just like maybe 2 or 3 things that franchisees, like if you're looking for a potential franchise opportunity, just 2 or 3 things that a franchisee needs to kind of think about or focus on or ask questions to the franchisor to determine whether or not that's the right opportunity for them.
Thank you, Carlos. One of the things that I would encourage every potential franchisee is to, when you get your disclosure document, before you get into that long, big, tedious document and go get your professional to look at it with you, just simply ask yourself, can I see myself doing this? If it's the food concept, can you see yourself? If you're in Dunkin', can you see yourself going home smelling like donuts? If you can, you're probably on the right track. If it's a service business, can you actually see yourself cleaning an office building? Can you picture yourself inside this opportunity? If that conceptually makes sense to you, then as you look at the document, see what the franchisor has to say. Look at the litigation. Are they involved in any type of litigation? And if so, you want to inquire about that. I don't care how big, how small. You need to know what happened to cause this legal disagreement. Secondly, when you start looking at this thing fiscally, look at item 7. Item 7 to tell you what it's going to cost to build it or to create it. And from that, then quickly, as fast as you can, I tell them, go to item 19. See, I read FDDs differently now. I start at item 19 and go back, okay? Because if I can't get past 19, I'm going to close the book for me, because I'm just looking at a lot of things kind of with a laser focus. Now, I can skip the warm and fuzzies. All right, I'll get warm and fuzzy as I get more money. I just had a tendency to feel better, okay? So that takes care of my emotional piece. And the last thing I would do is certainly look at the franchisees that are in that system. And I would encourage any potential franchisee, call them, ask for their time. And while you're looking at the ones in the system, there's also listed those who are no longer in the system. Call them too. Okay, franchisor is not going to tell you that. I've been a franchisor. He's not going to tell you to call those, because that situation didn't work out well. it's to your benefit to know what happened in that relationship to cause them to be put on the no longer involved with me list. Okay, something happened, and if it happened to them, you want to make sure it doesn't happen to you. So talking as a former franchisor, those are things that you're not going to get when you're talking to that franchise sales representative, because I'm that guy too. I don't want you to go there necessarily, because then that's going to, if nothing else, that's going to slow down my process. And my process is time sensitive. I got to move you along this track. Okay, I got to move you along as fast as I can. So those are just a few things that I would do, that I would consider. Hope I answered your question, Carlos.
No, I really appreciate that, Calvin, with respect to, of course, that's being transparent, but I also think it's very important that you identify franchise consultants that are transparent and just not trying to make a sale, that's care about you and want you to grow and succeed. So that's why it's so important that we have these types of organizations, J3 and things along those lines, so that they can guide folks to make the right decision. I was born and raised in Louisiana, and I remember I had a guidance counselor thinking about which colleges to go to. It's like, look, go to this school if you want to live in Louisiana and be in government. But if you want to be a corporate or franchise lawyer, you got to go to these schools here. So they help guide me and reduce the time and effort it took in order to be, to achieve my professional accomplishments and things along those lines. And finally, before closing up, I think that's one of the things with respect to Mayor Eric Johnson's franchise initiative that's so important, where Tim said that he couldn't he had to go to the IFA. Franchise is local based. You shouldn't have to go to anywhere else but your local city in order to make this work, right? But we need to make sure that we have the right team of consultants, accountants, construction, financing that's available to make it easy for you. And that's what this franchise initiative is aimed to do, is to make it easier to have that grassroots, because a lot of times, a lot of organizations, it's more global in nature, but they have no relationships with respect to grassroots, to the people that they're trying to sell products and services to. And I will basically ask any franchisor, if they're really serious about growing and scaling and increasing diversity with respect to franchising, come talk to us, come talk to me, come talk to Calvin, come talk to Tim. We have an organization, we have the relationships to really make you successful, as well as the fact that you just don't want to buy one franchise. We want to put you in the position to grow and scale. Franchising is very flexible with respect to growing and scaling concepts, as well as if there's a non-compete, you can operate other businesses. So you have a lot of flexibility in order to build your empire. So we're going to help reduce the information deficit. Really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for Tim and Calvin with respect to coming up here and sharing their insights. They're also on the Mayor's Franchise Council, so we're getting the right type of insights in order to make this successful. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you.
Wow, we got some gems there, did we not? Thank you, Carlos, Calvin, and Tim. And yes, the city of Dallas is certainly setting the pace for educating, equipping, and supporting business ownership through franchising. Now we're going to talk to one of those franchisors who does want to commit to being local. That's why they're here in Dallas, Texas today, and really want to focus on that. We're talking about Tony Nicholson. Tony is the Vice President of Franchise Development at Self Esteem Brands. They are a platinum sponsor VIP diversity champion for J3. Tony brings over 18 years of experience in the franchising world to his role at Self Esteem Brands, including in consumer experience, engagement, gym operations initiatives as well. He spent his last 10 years at Self Esteem Brands in franchising sales and development, including 3 years leading a team of seasoned development professionals focused on expanding their 4 major brands, which are Anytime Fitness, Waxing the City, Base Camp Fitness, and the Bar Method. Tony has also been a franchisee himself in the last 20 years, owning multiple Anytime Fitness clubs in Minnesota and Wisconsin. He's also served as a member of Self Esteem Brands Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board, helping to drive new DE&I initiatives and programs for the company. He serves on the board of Rooted Philanthropic, an organization focused on helping people of St. Paul's East Side communities unlock their potential. Tony has a BA in communications with a minor in economics and an emphasis in exercise science from the University of Minnesota. He resides in Woodbury, Minnesota with his wife, LaRoyce, and his 3 children. Let's hear from Tony. Tony, come on up.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dallas. My name is Tony, and Jack, thank you for the intro. Thank you for having us. We are honored to be here and to be a part of this process and this project. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time, and what I loved about Carlos and the group that just came up here, everything they just said, yes, times 10. So, and when I actually walk into different areas, I've been in franchising, as Jack had mentioned, for a long time, at least in my mind. There's always somebody out there who's been in the game longer. When you go to these different groups, whether it's broker networks, IFA, IFE, multi-units, Earsa, there's always somebody that has more knowledge, more background, and so me as a franchising now professional, I always try to soak it up. I always try to learn more from those who have paved the way. So, and I'm on the road all the time too. I literally just flew in last night, and I'm hopping on a flight here in about an hour and a half. And so far this year, I've been on 8 trips, and then between now and April 15th, I'll be on, another 4 or 5 more trips. So I travel quite a bit. And a lot of the different work that we do right now is trying to find ways to grow the brand, recruit, tap into different areas. I will say this, as we kind of go through, Johnny King, as we kind of go through some of the information, I know that this very specific area of driving, recruiting, and making sure that our brands and the communities we are in we have more diversity, which I'll say right now, we did some surveys. We know that we're not hitting the mark. We know that as of right now, if you look at, Johnny, go back one more. If you look at where we are, what we do, we don't have the representation that we should. And I'll kind of walk through some of the accolades of who we are. But as Jack had mentioned, this is me. I've been around for a long time in the space. 2 things I want to point out. So I live in Minneapolis, and the last 3 to 4 years have been unique for the world. Right? We've gone through COVID-19. We lost Kobe. Businesses have had some challenges. There's some challenges right now in the banking system. The hardest I've cried as an adult was in the spring of 2020, right? So what happened with George Floyd was in my backyard. And so that was for our organization, it was a watershed moment. It was an opportunity for us to say, we know that we should be doing more. We know that this was an opportunity for us to engage. And so I was one of the first folks on our DEI board. And I'll just flat out tell you that how we started the board was completely the wrong way. We had about 18 people on the board. I looked around the room, looked around the Zoom calls, and I was the only person on those calls in that room that looked like me. And as we started kind of going through, how do we do better here? How do we have more diversity? We had a lot of spin. We had a lot of tire spin. And we started getting off track. The reason why we started the council was because of what happened with George Floyd. We were in meetings talking about how do we recruit more people that are hard of hearing, people that have disabilities, more women franchisees. Those are all great. Those are all great initiatives. But the reason why we created the board, we definitely lost our traction, which is how we found J3. We needed somebody to come to the table, help us to really put together a program that made sense. What I always tell my clients, what I always have my team tell their folks is that if you partner with the right franchisor, it should be about as plug and play and turnkey as possible. Everything that Carlos mentioned, marketing, operations, real estate, funding partners, a franchise business coach. It should be about as turnkey as possible. You could certainly start your own brand. You could certainly start your own business, but you're gonna have to figure out all those things. Well, as it relates to this particular topic of how do we increase our diversity, Self Esteem Brands had zero clue. So we did activate some folks who could help us, which I'm gonna talk about in just a little bit. Johnny? So Self Esteem Brands. We are a very, very large organization. And Jack, by the way, if I forget at the end, will you just remind me to mention legacy? Okay, thank you. So we are a very large organization, and our motto is to improve the self-esteem of the world. Now, I know it's a very ambiguous, broad statement, but the businesses that we roll out, the businesses that we help folks franchise, in our minds, help accomplish that. Johnny? Next one. So Self Esteem Brands, we've been around for 21 years, and I'm gonna hop into some of the brands we have, but we are now in close to 40 countries in all 50 states in the US. We've got a lot of locations, and because of the success of our flagship brand, 10 years ago, actually 9.5 years ago, we attracted back a very, very large PE firm called Roark Capital, based out of Atlanta. Roark's a 23, 24, $25 billion brand. I believe they're invested in about 40 different brands. They've been our partner now for 10 years. Well, as I was talking with Carlos, most of these PE brands see an opportunity, they see upside, they buy in, pull out some of the equity. Within 3 to 4 years, they typically sell. The fact that Roark has been with our brand now for 10 years is a really good sign. So ultimately, at the end of the day, once our first brand did so well, we then now turned into a holding company. So now we have several brands that we franchise that were highlighted in our sizzle reel. Out of those several brands we have, we actually franchise 4 of them. Johnny? These are the brands. These are brands that Jack had mentioned. Johnny? Our largest brand, Anytime Fitness. Anytime Fitness has been around for 20 going on 21 years. We have 3,000 stores in the US, 5,000 global. I run a team of sales and development folks that help clients and franchisees get into franchising in the US and Canada. And then in every other country we're in, up to those 40 different countries, not my favorite term, but we have a master franchisee model where folks then buy into UK, Southeast Asia, Australia. We are on all 7 continents. And then basically they represent us as the corporate entity. So they recruit, they train, they support, they motivate, they help stand up. And then we as the master franchisor, all the benefits of about 20% come to us. So it's a great model. Now here's what I'll say. I wanted to throw out one quick stat. So if you look at the fitness space, it's a very crowded, noisy space. With Anytime Fitness, we think that it's a great model, but it's almost flat. It's almost at this point flat, meaning that the amount of consumers that hop into the space versus the competition, we're at about a 5 to 7% growth rate. But we do know there's still a ton of opportunity here in the US, and then again, global, wide open. I think when it's all said and done with this brand alone, I think we'll have 25 to 30,000 locations. A real quick baseline. So if you look at, in the world of franchising, less than 3.5% of all brands have more than 100 locations, right? So getting over more than 100 locations is kind of a big deal. And I mean everyone, from the Chick-fil-A's, McDonald's, Burger King's, all of them, right? So this is a brand where we definitely struck gold, which then turned into us partnering with Roark, and now we've got the other brands. Johnny? This is a brand that's relatively new. It's actually been around for about 10 years. It was actually founded by a guy named Nick Schwimmer, and Nick was the co-founder of Zappos Shoes. So as I mentioned before with Anytime Fitness, in that 5 to 7% growth rate, this space has the most potential within our portfolio. We are forecasting that 30 to 35% uptick in growth. This is a brand that competes directly with the Orange Theories, the F45s, CrossFit type models. And what's unique about this brand is that although you shrink your consumer market for the consumers that have interest in this, there's also quite a bit less competition. So we love it. We've now, and actually this brand, we launched this brand in April of 2020. So as you guys can imagine, the worst time in the world to launch a brand. When we acquired the brand, there was 5 locations. Fast forward to today, we've now sold close to 110 licenses in 10 different states. So ton of growth for the model. We're excited about it. We're now launching it internationally as well underneath a different umbrella called Summit. But this is a brand that we've got a lot of excitement about. Johnny? The bar method. The bar method is definitely more of a eclectic brand, still in that 100 location space. But with all the brands we have in the fitness space, we do have different consumer segments and how we approach it and how we recruit and the different marketing and the support. All of those elements have to be unique and specified towards the brand. But what we love about this brand is that similar to Basecamp Fitness, there are a lot less consumers that have interest, but there's only about 3 major folks in this space. So there's a ton of upside here as well. Waxing the City. This is the only non-fitness based brand that we have today. With most of the brands we have, what's the term? I would consider most of our brands to be not recession proof, but recession resistant. Meaning that going through COVID-19, coming through some of the challenges, although there were a lot of temporary shutdowns and different types of mandates, folks still had to work out, right? Father time is coming for all of us, right? So at the end of the day, on the fitness side of our portfolio, we had some challenges coming out of it. We're now getting back to pre-COVID levels. But with Waxing the City, what do we all have? Hair. We all have hair. We all have hair. Well, we all have hair in spaces. We all have hair in spaces that we don't necessarily want the hair in. And so this is a brand that coming out of COVID-19, when we opened up the doors, we had a huge rush of business, a huge influx of business. And our thought was that you had a lot of people that were cooped up in their basements, in their homes, had a bunch of hair growing in a bunch of different spots. We saw about a 35 to 40% increase in 2021. All of our analysts told us, whatever you guys do not expect that type of long-term growth. Expect a nice little blip and then it'll level out. Well, I'm happy to say that 2022 was the best year out of 10 years in franchising we've ever seen. And what I love about this brand is that there's really only one major competitor within the space, European Wax. And as we kind of look at growing this brand, this is a brand that I specifically love for the BIPOC community. Because if you look at how different types of processes work for removing hair, if you've got curly hair, if you've got different types of hair, certain things like laser does not work well for us, right? So this is a brand that we would love to have a lot more growth in. We've got about 150 stores. Actually, that's a lot off. We've got 150 stores today with another 100 in production. And we think that when it's all said and done, we will have close to 1,000 locations in the US. And our revenues for this brand have never been better. AUVs at about 600,000 for the average. Top 1/3 are going to be closer to about 800. And then we've got multiple locations that are well over $1 million a year. Johnny? All right. So last but not least, what are we looking for as relates to franchisees? Well, as Carlson Group had mentioned, what we love about franchising is that this is a business that you can do it in a few different ways. Yes, you can be an owner operator. I will tell you that probably less than 25% of our investors actually run their businesses. A lot of our folks will scale, and so the average franchisee within our ecosystem will have 3.5 to 5 stores. Now that's a bit of a misleading stat because we do have some larger super groups in that legacy play. But I'll tell you that a much better stat is that 65% of our franchisees have more than one store. So this is a business where you could, if you're an attorney, if you're a doctor, if you're an educator, and you've done a certain career for X amount of years because you've got a family or you knew something you want to get into, but yet you're looking for passive income, this is definitely a great fit for a lot of folks, right? Getting into franchising. And then we have folks that say, listen, I want to still keep my job as an attorney. I want to still keep my job as an educator, but at some point I would love to own my own gym. I'd love to own my own business. So we do help folks essentially craft a bit of a transition plan. So at the end of working for General Mills or Target or Best Buy for 20 years, we will help these folks set up a transition plan. And the last thing I want to mention at the end of my last slide is I want to kind of talk about the whole legacy play. So we're looking for franchisees who are coachable, folks who are well capitalized. However, when we looked at our current franchisee system and all the folks that we have, we did some surveys. We did some surveys looking at our diversity. And I'm okay sharing this, but at the end of the day, and we actually used Popeye's model for creating a bit of a baseline. And so Popeye's has a model where they want to be able to recruit more diversity as relates to Black or African American, Latinx, and then Native American. Those are the three big groups that have the least amount of representation. When we looked at our current franchisee system, we had about 6%. And there was one group where it was a less than 1% sign with a squiggly line. So we knew that it wasn't great. And so we knew we had some opportunities for us to grow in some of these spaces. And so partnering with J3, some of the things we're trying to figure out is how do we as a franchisor remove some of the barriers for this group? How do we do that? Is it funding? Is it mentorship? Is it creating a path to success? These are all the things that, as I had very candidly mentioned earlier, we just don't have our arms wrapped around it. So I'll just flat out say that we still are in growth mode. We are still in trying to discover how do we do it? How do we create a better model? And there's definitely some opportunity for us to grow. So the last thing I want to point out on this slide is that we want folks who are passionate, right? We want folks who are passionate. We want folks who want to hop into the business. The one type of franchisee that we won't partner with is somebody who wants to be disengaged, right? Someone who's looking for what we call in the space mailbox money. They'll hop into the business, they'll hire somebody to run the business, and then they'll maybe check into the business once every 12 months. We've got a very, very, very low failure rate across all of our brands. Historically, we're at a less than 2% failure rate. The stores and the models and the franchisees that fail, typically 85% of the time are folks who are completely disengaged. So we want someone who's passionate. You don't have to be in the business every day. If you've got 10 locations, there's no way for me to mass produce Carlos. So at some point, you're going to have to rely on systems and processes and really good people, right? Johnny? Oh, and actually, Johnny, you can go one more. Okay. So one of the things that we tapped into early on was, and this is in my mind, this is the tip of the iceberg. We wanted to be able to offer a discount for that group that I mentioned earlier, right? And I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's good enough. I don't think that's where we ultimately want to be, but at least we're now hopping into the space. I think where we get really good is we start to partner up with different folks to help us to recruit, to create different types of programming for funding and for financing. But I think our big opportunity is to create some mentorship models. And I don't know who mentioned this. Somebody had mentioned going into maybe different areas where underrepresented areas for people of color. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit for at least my company to partner up with the right franchisees to go into this space. So I couldn't have said it better. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I've now been appointed to a council where we're essentially going to be every single 12 months. We need to spend about $25 million, and that $25 million needs to go to, well, if a potential franchisee has earned the right versus given the right, someone who's earned the right to become a franchisee, but they may not have a 15% injection. They may not have a stellar credit score. We want to be able to remove some of those barriers with some of these funds, grow in some of these spaces, and then ultimately have a much better look within our brand. I want to talk about legacy really quickly as I close. So one of the things that I had noticed, and I think you guys have mentioned, looking at the space, when I go to these different councils and these different conferences, I look around, there aren't a lot of people who look like me. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what I love about franchising is that this is a business where you can pull out, if you've got the right brand, you can pull out good, solid money every year, good, solid passive income. But it's also a legacy play for folks, right? Meaning that not only are you pulling out money, but you're now growing equity within your business, right? So as we become now this very large organization, we now have a lot of PE firms knocking at our doors. And the PE firms are now interested in buying out franchisees who have five plus locations. And so when you look at the value of some of our businesses, the value is typically about 3.5 times EBITDA, right? On the more aggressive side, maybe you say 5, but that's a hard sell. We've got now PE firms that are coming in making offers 14, 15 to 20 times EBITDA. So if an average Anytime Fitness per our 2019, 2020 FDD is at about $200,000 for EBITDA, take that times 3.5, take that times 5, take that times 15. And so now this is a great opportunity for us to be able to not only run a business, be in some more diverse communities, but now have the ability to pass down this legacy business. I was recently at an event where I was with a bunch of different folks who've been in franchising and just business owners. And we kind of all went around the room. We talked about our backgrounds, talked about our families, and 80% of the people in the group either had inherited a business or had their family push down the business to them or kind of brought them into the business. That's not me. That's not me. I can tell you that everything that I've done, sleeves rolled up, hopping in, learning as we go. And so I personally want to make sure that we now create a much better platform for people like me to get into the space. So last thing I'll say is that I'm not going to be able to be here for the Q&A panel, but I want to be able to share my information just in case anyone has questions. So my email address is Tony, Tony, .Nicholson, NICHOLSON, at S as in Sarah, E as in Edward, brands with an S. So Tony.Nicholson at sebrands.com. If I can help in any way or partner up or information share, I'd love to do so. But again, my name is Tony Nicholson. I'm the VP of Development for Self Esteem Brands. And again, I just know that our group, there's opportunity. And last thing I'll say is this, is that when we kind of go around and look at different things and folks say, well, why do you like franchising? Why do you like owning your own small business? And I say, why not? Why shouldn't we be? Why shouldn't we be at the table? Why shouldn't we have a good chunk of the business, right? So thank you for your time today, everyone.
Thank you, Tony. Legacy. I had to remember that word for him. Very nicely done. We certainly appreciate the unique perspective Tony has as both a multi-unit franchisee and leading a team within the franchisor. We're also really appreciative of Self Esteem Brands, their industry-leading diversity initiatives that are now underway. We just saw a few of them up there. So thanks to you and that incredible SEB leadership team. Now, as mentioned, one of the brands of SEB is Waxing the City, and they're popping up all over the place, as Tony mentioned. We have a special guest joining us live online from Dothan, Alabama. Her name is Melinda Sykes. She owns a Waxing the City. In fact, she's moving beyond a one-unit franchisee at this time. She's the founder of the Business Notebook, Credibility Cure, Alabama Nail Company, and, as mentioned, Waxing the City. She's an accomplished entrepreneur, without a doubt. She has many interests. So she really is focused on working to improve the knowledge gap that inhibits many executives from connecting to their diverse and ever-evolving workforce in a way that really creates positive change. Remember, we talked about that, being change agents. So before pursuing her entrepreneurial adventures, the Troy University MBA graduate honed her talents for a decade in procurement, helping to run a $500 million business. Then in 2017, Melinda birthed Waxing the City in Dothan, Alabama as her first entrepreneurial investment. Her impactful leadership and business acumen quickly rose the business to $1 million business in less than 4 years. Let's give our attention to Melinda.
Alrighty, well, welcome. I am super excited to share with you guys today. It has definitely been a journey, but I'm excited to be on the panel and also be able to share amongst some amazing speakers, some great knowledge when it comes to franchise ownership. So let's get started. You guys got the first slide up? All right, so like I mentioned, I'll be sharing, we can go to the next slide. I'll be sharing a little bit about my background because I feel like a lot of people get into this space and are a little bit concerned that you need all of these skills or be super accomplished. But I think the secret sauce is that so many of us franchisees are so different. And that honestly is what makes us better overall. But that, you know, your secret sauce is honestly just you. And what makes your journey a little bit different is your unique skills that you bring to the table. So I'll share a little bit about my career journey before Wax in the City and what brought me to Wax in the City. And then we'll get into entrepreneurship with Wax in the City and honestly how it's been a game changer for my life, my family, and also just personally and professionally. So we can get into that. All right, so like I mentioned, I am Melinda Sykes. I'm a franchisee owner of the Wax in the City in Dothan, Alabama. I was born in Japan, raised in Marietta, Georgia, and I've called Dothan home for the last 9 years or so. I actually ended up moving here with a job promotion while I was still in corporate America. So definitely not from Alabama, but I call it home, and it's been good so far. I currently sit on the board. I don't know if you guys can still hear me okay, but I currently sit on the board of several, several different specific, honestly, nonprofits and salon management programs. And I mention that specifically because getting invested in your community as an owner is important and something that I think a lot of people should look into if you're going to be in this space. Is really getting involved in your community. So I sit on a couple of boards, some that I'm super, super passionate about personally, like the Exchange Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse and things like that, that I'm super passionate about. And honestly, ownership has given me the opportunity to be able to donate, passionately, and more importantly, be able to donate to my, my time and volunteer efforts as well. But I also sit on the salon and spa council as well that, pushes initiatives that are great for the salon industry, definitely in my location. And I specifically mentioned that because it's important to definitely be involved in the community that you serve. So several other things, but I think one of the reasons why I switched, from being in corporate America to ownership was to be able to have a little bit more time management and also financial freedom. So I'll speak on that too. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so let's get into it. So what I know for sure is I knew I loved leading people and honestly creating a space and environment that felt rewarding. So after I graduated college, I joined an engineering firm and worked there for 2 years. I was primarily in the procurement space during my career in corporate America. But after I'd say 10 years in corporate America, like many people, I was getting a little bit of burnout and my job was demanding, but it was also really rewarding, but it was demanding nevertheless and of my time. And then, I was taking different job promotions. So that piece was really rewarding and being able to move very often and get that change of atmosphere. I loved it. And I loved the people that I worked with. But for me, I wanted to be able to financially support myself, but also have time freedom. And so I think with me moving to a smaller city that did not have a full body waxing studio, and I come from a city like Atlanta that does, there's a waxing studio in every corner, essentially. There was not one here. So it was almost like the prime opportunity to where personally I was looking for something, ownership specifically, that I could really figure out a schedule that fit for my lifestyle. And then two, an opportunity to bring something to a city that was not there. It was a model that I knew worked because I had been waxing for many years. I knew the model worked. It just had not been brought to a market where I was living just yet. So I was actually having to drive about an hour and 30 minutes to the closest full body waxing studio. And honestly, it was like a light bulb moment. I had done that for about 2 years before I started researching different waxing franchises and which one I really wanted to invest in and use that as my vehicle to exit corporate America. So I researched Wax in the City in 2017 and ended up flying to Minneapolis, meeting with the team, and honestly getting to see the people that would be supporting me in this partnership, getting a good warm feeling that they were knowledgeable, they were forward thinking, that they were looking and following trends in the industry, and looking for the future. I felt comfortable in that space and that it was a brand that had the willpower, the knowledge, and expertise to train me, to help me, and support me in this journey with me exiting corporate America. So after I left Minneapolis, I signed on with Wax in the City, did my whole franchise agreement, and ended up opening Wax in the City in November of 2017. And I always try not to sugarcoat what ownership looks like because it is a journey for sure. It is a challenging one, but it is so rewarding. And just watching our progression from 2017 to date has been one that it always, in hindsight's always 2020. And just looking at the growth year over year is exciting. It's and like Tony mentioned, it's building equity in your business. It is the monthly cash flow that you get. It is all of those things. So super exciting to have made that transition in 2017. But I also talk about acknowledging the gap, right? So acknowledging the gap, and I mean that in the space of a lot of us get really concerned about going into ownership because we don't know everything, right? So there's so much learning and building a business, but the two things that I would definitely say is finding supportive spaces and following the franchise model, right? So the franchise model is proven time and time again. There's several locations. This model works. It's a matter of following it until you're successful and then having supportive groups that are pushing towards very similar goals as you are, and making sure that on the rough days, because there will be some, that you've got a supportive network of other franchisees, other business owners that look like you, that are ambitious like you are, to lift you up on those days, because it can be challenging for sure. So when I speak of that, a lot of hard work went into those first 2 or 3 years. But like Tony mentioned, 2021 was a great year for Wax in the City, and specifically for my location. It was our first $1 million year, and honestly set the benchmark for what we expect every year. And setting that benchmark of $1 million studio has given me the opportunity to employ 14 amazing, smart women and provide full benefits package, which for me, it's the impact piece for my community and also for my employees of being able to provide a full career for them versus just another job and just making another paycheck. We really try to create an environment that is supportive and one that they want to come to every single day. So 2021 was our benchmark, and we've hit that $1 million mark and actually been about 20% year over year ever since then. So that's been exciting and also really, really rewarding. In 2022, I launched the loan forgiveness program here with our local community college to really support the industry, because if people don't know, the cosmetology, aesthetics, manicurist roles, they're all a licensed role that's by the board of Alabama, and it can be extremely hard to recruit because a lot of people are not going into these trades much like they used to. So we created a loan forgiveness program, honestly, for two reasons. There's a lot of people that do not pursue college for whatever reason, and typically it can be financially. So what we do is we cover it, we pay their tuition fees, labs and books for them. And once they complete their 1 year degree, they will come work for Wax in the City for 12 consecutive months. And after then, they owe us nothing. So they can literally come out of school completely debt free with a very good, high paying job with full benefits. And I think that is such a luxury for, young men and women that are 18, 19 years old, just figuring out their life to be able to go to school and also have a job lined up immediately after college. So that is the impact piece that I love and I think is super rewarding as an owner. And it's been a luxury to have. And ideally, we'd love to have that forever. So we actually have our first student who is graduating in May, and she'll be joining us shortly after. That's our first person out of the program. So that's been rewarding and hopefully successful for future years. So, speaking of that, I wanted to speak a little bit about my franchisee experience. So, when we talk about being a franchisee, it's truly a partnership. Like you are in marriage with the brand, and so your hopes and future aspirations are completely partnered with hoping that they're moving in the same direction or in a positive direction. And I can definitely say that Wax in the City has done that. If they've come so far in the 5 years that I've been with them, but always moving with what our industry data and trends show us, which is what you can only hope for. And so what that looks like is just from assistance from construction to opening, it's operating procedures there, roadmap to success, just absolute blueprints of what the business should look like, benchmarks. You're getting a whole network of people from marketing to sales to recruiting help, even other franchisees who have been in the network already for several years. They can share knowledge with you and access to best practices that can definitely help your business grow quicker and faster. And also just be able to help you overall of what that looks like of running the day-to-day and operational tools. That's what the beauty of a franchise model is versus going off on your own and creating your own brand or whatever. You're not going to get this out of the gates. And definitely that building the network is so instrumental because you can speak with owners that have been in the business 10 or 15 years to owners that are still in construction phase. And that knowledge shared between the two is game changer for sure. If you can talk with someone who's running the exact same business as you are and get knowledge from them, to-dos and things not to do, that can really game change your business. So having that network is honestly been so fruitful for me. And honestly, when I talk about Wax in the City, I get pretty passionate about it because I can honestly say it's changed my life personally and professionally. And everything that I was hoping for going into it has came to fruition. So from the time freedom, me running $1 million business and me being able to be there, but not having to be there because I run a pretty tight ship. I will not sugarcoat that at all. I run a pretty tight ship, but I absolutely treasure my employees. And I know that that business does not run without them. But being able to have the time freedom to spend with my parents who are retired and travel with them, and also having the financial freedom that it's brought me to invest in other things is exactly what I went into the brand for. And to know that it's come to life and honestly more than I could have ever imagined for us to be a top studio. I knew we would do well, but I did not know we would do this well. And continue to do so well. So it's just been a blessing overall. And I think more people should honestly look into the franchise model and business. And like they mentioned about these legacy plans, like there's so much more to it for your family and to be able to pass down these businesses and build the equity. It's game changer for people that look like me. And I just, I hope that forums like this really create the opportunity for that knowledge to be shared quicker and faster and for it to be a good thing for specifically women, but definitely people that look like me as well. So I'm excited and thankful. keys to my success, I share these, and I know that I think Tony mentioned this as well, is that they look for franchisees that are coachable. And it's the first thing that I had put on my slide is I remain teachable and coachable for sure. There's a level of humility that is you'll see in a lot of successful owners. And I think being teachable and coachable is a piece of that as well. I also hired people that align with my vision and goals. So if they are not a good fit, they typically, it's probably not a good fit to work for my business. If they're not aligned with my visions and goals, um, I just typically stay away from that because it's going to deter the success of my business. So I leave that piece to I interview for that piece pretty strongly. Um, to make sure that they understand what as a team we are pushing for. I maintain a high level of transparency in my business, specifically around my numbers. I'm actually actively involved in the community for sure. Invested in my business time and money. There's no retail or no time I won't spend on investing in my business consistently. And I require a high level of accountability that I mentioned. And also, like I mentioned about the support groups with similar goals and aspirations. So I think when I talk to other successful franchisees, whether it's in the Wax in the City family or in any, self-esteem brands, it is one of the things that they mention is they're not scared to invest in their business. And they also have those support groups to help them around knowledge sharing and networking. So yeah, I'm excited to just share about Wax in the City and quite honestly, just hope that more people, specifically women, like I mentioned, give it a good hard look and an opportunity to jump in this space and honestly let it change your family for the better for sure.
Well, we're back here, and wow, what an inspiring and really role model view we just saw for all those who've considered business ownership through franchising. We really thank you, Melinda, for sharing that and for being with us today. Now, we've talked about business ownership, right? So we'd be remiss if we talked about business ownership, but ignored one of the biggest hurdles. What is that? It's access to capital, right? That's why our next guest is here. And once we filled him in on this minority franchise ownership initiative, he jumped in with 2 feet. So I'd like to introduce him. His name is Anthony Williams. Anthony is with AltCap rather. He's the Texas market president for AltCap, which is a CDFI. That's a community development financial institution that invests in underserved communities throughout Missouri and Texas. They deploy capital through innovative financing products, targeted small businesses, and economic development programming and partnerships that help build an inclusive ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Since 2005, AltCap has delivered nearly $200 million in new market tax credits and $7 million in small business financing to community-driven real estate development projects and to entrepreneurs who've been left out of the financial mainstream. AltCap believes that aligning financial, social, and environmental and human capital creates stronger communities and a thriving, inclusive economy. Now, there's a little bit more about Anthony, and he probably won't share all of this, but he's also the managing director for Equity Square. And previously, Anthony was the president and CEO of the Minority Supplier Development Council in Kansas City, which focused on fostering business relationships at both the state and the local level with nearly 100 corporations and over 300 certified minority business enterprises, MBEs. And what did that result in? A cumulative economic impact of $10.6 billion in revenue and over 34,000 jobs. Let's hear from Anthony. Mr. Williams, please.
My name is Anthony Williams. I am the market president for AltCap. Looking forward to participating in the event. What does this event mean to me? It means that we have another opportunity to provide capital to different types of entrepreneurs beyond the Kansas City, Missouri area, beyond the Houston, Texas area, and beyond the California region as well, as we look to expand into new regions, This provides an amazing opportunity to partner with J3, the City of Dallas, and Self Esteem Brands so that we can find ways to get capital into communities and into entrepreneurs' hands that they can do more business with and in a profitable capacity. And that's what we do at AltCap. We want to be able to provide accessible capital for entrepreneurs, founders of color, and in the communities that are often overlooked and underserved. Looking forward to having an amazing time. Looking forward to you following back up with me to learn more about AltCap as well. Thank you again. My name is Anthony Williams, Market President of AltCap.
Selfishly, I just wanted to hear the music. I like the music. Sometimes I'm a former college baseball player, so I remember one of my favorite things is when we played in certain stadiums, we had a walkout song. So that is just kind of gets me motivated and energized for what we're about to talk about today. And Jack's 100% right. Jack and I were on a forum last year, about a year ago, talking about funding franchises through CDFIs, community development financial institutions. Now, remember, after we got off the call, I sent Jack an email and said, hey, we need to talk. My personality is not geared towards just talking. I said, I believe in action. Let's figure out how we can work together to provide capital to these businesses, especially people of color that are looking to open up franchises. And so that's embarked on many conversations with me, him, Johnny, Jennifer over the last several months. And now it's time for action because now you're my state. Let's figure out a way that we can deploy capital. As Jack stated, AltCap is a very unique institution in itself because we can provide capital for real estate through new market tax credits, which is a very underutilized program. We also provide microloans, small business loans, but also because I'm the managing director of Equity Squared as well too, we can provide capital investments, equity investments anywhere from between $50,000 to $250,000 into businesses, operating businesses, and also real estate projects. So my brain is set on both sides, debt and equity. And that's why one of the major reasons why I wanted to present AltCap to this group today. Feel free to go ahead, John. What do we do? And one of the biggest things that when we think about, especially in persons of color, communities, Black communities, Hispanic communities, we need allies. Every single one of us that got up here and stood today talked about partnering, leadership development, economic development, mentoring. AltCap, what we want to do is we want to be able to provide not only capital, but technical assistance as well to help your business grow and be exactly what I said in that video is profitable. How do you want to run a profitable business? By show of hands, everybody does. You want to make money. We don't want to be able to be in the business of nonprofit. I don't even like that term. If you've been around me, it's like, hey, you know what? You're not a nonprofit. You're a business leveraging a tax exempt status because our words are power. And so when we start thinking about AltCap, and you go to the next slide, John, you start thinking about AltCap and what we can do together. We also advocate, and this is what I mean, what can we do together? We advocate for businesses, aging financial policies, aging or outdated political policies at the state and local level, because let's be candid, a lot of the things that we face are systematic. And so we try to be a voice as well, in addition to providing capital in the regions that we support. Where's AltCap located? We're located in the state of Texas. I'm based in Houston, but we have several opportunities here in the city of Dallas. I'd like to explore a little bit more. Mr. Williams and I had a conversation several months ago. I'd like to revisit that conversation. We're also based in California. We're and have an office in Los Angeles, and we cover the entire state of Missouri and Kansas, and we're just now rolling out two affiliates of AltCap in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as Denver, Colorado. So we're growing and expanding because the need has continued to grow and expand coming out of the pandemic. John, if you want to go to the next one, our focus is you're not a credit scorer. Everyone has an idea, but you have an idea. One of the things that's very unique with us is we're not a bank, but we work with banks to provide capital. So we think about CRA, Community Reinvestment Act opportunities and dollars. We can work with banks in that capacity. We also work very closely with banks for referrals. There's a lot of things that take place in the banking industry that we may not be privy to. Most banks don't like to lend capital under $200,000. Let's be honest. Everybody in here does not need necessarily $200,000 to start a business. They may need $25,000. They may need $50,000. And that's the space where we want to be able to provide and fill that gap. The other initiative that we also do is with AltCap is We can fund and work with you for startups. We can do projection-based lending. What I like to say is we lend on two things, especially if we sit down and talk. I look for credibility. I look for credit, and not credit in what you think of. And I look for character. And that's why I try to meet and sit down with everyone that I work with, get to understand their DNA. Who are they? Are they credible in what they're saying that they want to do? And can the community rally around and support it? That's what makes franchises successful, is the community support. Not just the business support, but can the community rally behind you in that initiative? Is there a true need? And so as we look and as we sit down, everyone in here has an idea. Guess what? It's the best time in the world to start a business, because you don't have to you don't have to have a degree. All you gotta do is have an idea. Let's sit down and talk about an idea. If there's some technical assistance, we partner with the SBDCs, we partner with economic development centers, and we partner with other business consultants. We'd easily be a good partner for the franchise business coaches as well too, because we can show how we can fit into the capital stack, as well as if you're working with an SBA lender, we can figure out how we can work and partner. Our goal is to be exactly what we say we are, is a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. Next slide, please. You have passion, we see you. One of the first things I go into is when I go into a new region. I've traveled a lot for business purposes. I pick up the newspaper and I'll pick up the business journal. Why am I picking those things up? Is because I want to continue to learn and see what opportunities are in a region. So if we have an opportunity to grow and expand in those areas, we're already familiar with those markets. But also, if you've ever sat down and you've traveled with me or you get to know me, I don't like supporting big box. And I'm not afraid to say this, because the local community is really people look like us in the room. And so those opportunities, when we look at it and say, hey, what do I want to do? You want to start a business? Let's sit down and talk about it. Is it a franchise opportunity, or is it an entrepreneurial opportunity? And that's what we really want to do. The local businesses drive the economy. Next slide. What do we do? Lend money, make change. Let's think about that. Capital, when you start deploying capital, it strengthens the community. What does it do? It creates jobs, it creates tax bases, and it creates other opportunities and inspires other people to start businesses. I don't know about you, but I have a daughter that just graduated. The cost of college is expensive. Now, she was fortunate enough to get some scholarships and get some other things, but she went to TCU. And if anybody's familiar with Texas Christian University, that's a private school. Real private, exactly. And so one of the things that I had to try and push her to do was, hey, let's figure this thing out. You got a journalism degree, you were helping write papers, and you were tutoring athletes, and you were working with the athletic department. Let's figure out we can get you a business. And I forced her to start her LLC. The reason being was because I want to teach entrepreneurship and teach her how to make money instead of just working at a job or working for someone else. And that's why we start thinking about, when you start thinking about businesses and business development, that next generation that's coming up, they may not want to go to college for 4 years. They may want to do what some people in this room is doing. They want to start their own business. Just like the lady Melinda just said, she's empowering people at 18 to 19 to 20 years old to become estheticians and working in the industry with no debt. That's a huge win for those people. One thing I'd like to say as well too is we are stable. You see some of the things that we have with the banks and the banking industry, that we're pretty stable. We raise capital through banks. We raise capital through foundations. We raise capital through grants. And we also have corporations that support us, and we have impact investors that support us as well too. So we're a very well capitalized organization for we can lend money. Our interest rates, we typically do ranges from 8 to 12%. I've yet to see anything go to double digits as of yet, but because of our sources and how we raise capital, that may change. Just to be very candid with you. Our typical loans, 3 years. What we look at beyond 3 years, if we do, we'll typically cap it at 5. But we also do some flexibility. We ask questions on our application that most people don't. Now, whether we can help you in this regard, I'll state it, but we ask a question on our application is, what would you like your monthly payment to be? Obviously, we can't say 0, but we want you to think about regionally, how does this fit in your budget when we start looking at your projections and we start looking at your debt to income ratio. Next slide. What is our impact? We can talk about money. We can talk about what we do. Our impact is pretty straightforward. You think about, we've got $32 million that we've deployed to over 800 small businesses. AltCap started out as a new market tax credit entity, investing and working with businesses that wanted to grow in targeted communities. We spun up our lending program about 8 years ago. And we started out purely just with micro lending. So that $32 million is over 8 years, and that doesn't quantify, or it doesn't include the numbers that we had last year. Last year, we did about $4 million in loans, which is a huge number, probably more successful than we realized. We're probably on target to do that, to double that this year with the work in our new markets. Average loan by this data standard is about 40K. Realistically, it's probably jumped up to about $56,000. What we look at as a microloan may not be a microloan anymore because of inflation, but also because of increased capital needs for businesses that they want to survive. That number is probably about $56,000 for average. That number, 54%, has been deployed to people of business of color, 39% to women owned. What are we saying? We're really community focused, we're really community driven, and we want to make sure that the communities that we support and that we're in have the capital so that they can have an impact in their communities, but also with their families. We look at, if we lend a business owner some money, we look at not only the social impact, but families. Entrepreneurs, they're feeding their families too. They're employing other people, but you think about it, I try to figure out how to say yes. And I can't say yes to everybody. I have not said yes to everybody, but if you sit down in front of me and you say you have a $100,000 loan request, we go through and start looking at the numbers, and I'm educating you on certain things. Hey, could you deal with 50,000? Could I get you 25,000 just to get started? Let's figure it out. And then you come back after 6 months of strong payment history, or 6 to 8 months. Then we can work and extend you the additional capital that you need. Next slide, John. As we think about AltCap as well too, in closing, what we want to do is meet entrepreneurs where they are. We have innovative lending solutions. What does that mean? We're rolling out a new product. Could be said, we could partner very well with franchises. It's revenue-based financing. What does that mean? We can do a percentage of your revenue, your profit, your net profit on a monthly basis, and we can calculate a loan payment across that to meet your needs. And what that does is help you with the lean and fat times of your business. So we're looking for ways, and we listen to our borrowers of what they may need to continue to have sustainable businesses, and we can roll out products that meet the needs of the entrepreneurs where they are. So one of the things you think about AltCap, agility, access to capital, and if you research the history of CDFIs, I'd like to say we're activists for community capital, because we got started on activist movement in communities of Black and brown communities in the late 80s or in the 80s to say, hey, these communities are underserved, and we have to start driving capital there. And that's where you see the really CDFIs take off. Just now recently, over 1,000 new CDFIs have had applications come in play. It's going to be a lot more competitive, but we're ready for the challenge. And there's no competition when you're serving a community. It's more collaboration, and that's what we're here for. I'd love to have conversations with the people that are watching at home and the people that are here. If you want to go to the next slide, my contact information is here. 2 things you'll get out of me is honesty and integrity, and I'll shoot you straight. I've seen a lot of businesses in my lifetime, and guess what? I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste mine. Let's figure out how we can collaborate and work together. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Jack and J3. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Anthony. We're confident that you, AltCap, and the CDFIs nationwide are going to help solve this problem of access to capital. That's the challenge. And we solved that problem, and many more people of color could realize their dream of business ownership. Well, now I'm pleased to introduce another player in the franchise world, Ms. Jennifer Callender. Jennifer founded Ingenious Franchise Solutions after 25 years of experience in the corporate world. As a project manager, she worked for various executive roles for different Fortune 500 companies. She's an expert in identifying small business growth opportunities, resulting in a clear path to success. She provides a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs interested in buying or selling a franchise business. Jennifer is currently a resale franchise developer with Neighborly Brands. Let's hear from Jennifer.
Thank you, Jack. And I am grateful for Neighborly believing in this forum enough to send me to represent Neighborly. And then I hope that you're hearing a common theme across all of the speakers, and it's resonating with you what J3 is essentially all about. We're advocates for exposing and supporting African Americans in our community. I've always thought that lack of exposure is no indication of your success, because I think that that's solvable. Lack of exposure is solvable. And that's what we're about today. We're about solving the fact that, there are resources, there are support arms to help you essentially embark upon franchise business opportunity. So to that end, I've seen this done a couple of times, and I'm going to try to do it justice. I'm going to take us and walk us through a self visualization project activity, if you will. And we use this sometimes within Neighborly if we were coming upon someone that's kind of on the fence of understanding whether or not they want to move forward with franchise business ownership, or just want to understand, is this the right thing for me? So let's start off. So if you are out there virtually and in the room, take a piece of paper and turn it sideways. I think that's landscape size. So let's start there. Take one piece of paper and turn it sideways. On that piece of paper, I want you to draw a line in half, to dissect that piece of paper in half. So once you get the two halves, I want you to divide the two halves in half. So you should have essentially on your paper 4 rows. Okay. I see others still kind of waiting here. So I'm going to give you a little time because I really want this to resonate with folks. Four columns. I'm sorry, 4 columns. So dissect your paper in half, and then each half get half. So you have 4 rows essentially. The leftmost row, I want you to write at the top of that leftmost row, dreams and goals. So when you think about this is called the 4-box activity. When you think about dreams and goals, what are your dreams and goals? And think high, think out of the box. Don't limit yourself. So think about some of those dreams and goals that you want to achieve. One of mine is I want to take my family on an all-paid yacht vacation. So I want to eventually live abroad. So just think big. So under that dreams and goals, write needs. Needs. What do you need to have happen to achieve those dreams and goals? Okay. When you think about needs, you're thinking about financial independence. You're thinking about generational wealth. You're thinking about securing a future for your kids, perhaps, or providing quality living conditions for aging parents. I know, that's been my life for the last year or two. So, think about your needs in that box, in that area of that quadrant. Quality of life at the bottom of that row, write down quality of life, lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have for yourself? I said I wanted to live abroad. You want to work 3 times per week and still make an attractive income. You want to do missionary work. What is your lifestyle? What lifestyle do you see yourself living? Okay? Once you have that second row, simply write yes or no. The word yes or no. Now, when you look at yes or no, circle the answer to the question, are you on track for achieving your dreams and goals, your needs, and your lifestyle? So if nothing changed within the next 3 years, would you be on goal to achieve your dreams and goals, your needs, and your lifestyle requirements? If the answer is no, then something needs to change. Okay? If the answer is yes, congratulations, you're on track. You're doing what you need to do. But if the answer is no, let's talk about the no answer. So either you need to invest more, get a second job, and in our case, the reason we're here today, maybe you need to get into business ownership. So the third column, let's explore that business ownership. So if your answer is no, and the answer for you is business ownership, so what type of business? Write that at the top of that third column. What type of business? Franchise, independent, blah, blah, blah. Under what type of business, write what size of business. So what is that number you need to hit in revenue, gross sales to ensure your dreams and goals, your needs, and your lifestyle requirements? And then the last one in that row, what's the structure of that business? Owner operator. I want something more passive, turnkey. I want to be on the beach while my team is working, so I want to do it remotely. So you define what type of business. That last row, right at the top of that row, consequences. If you do nothing and everything stayed the same, what are the consequences? And under consequences, write the word victim. If you do nothing, everything stayed the same, what are the consequences? And who are the victims besides yourself? That takes the emotion out of this decision, gets you back to reality, and gets you in a frame of thought around taking action, whether it is with Self Esteem Brand, whether it is with Neighborly, whether it is with your own business, whether it is with your own financial portfolio, It gets you to a place of taking action. And that exercise, that piece of paper, I've done this a couple of times, and I have my piece of paper on my bathroom mirror taped. Every morning I get up and look at it. Am I on track? Have I just resigned to not do anything? But it holds you accountable. So I hope that resonates with someone, and I hope you find that beneficial, because that's a common tool we use at Neighborly. So when I think about talking about Neighborly, if you will, as Jack mentioned, I am resale developer for Neighborly, and Neighborly has been around for a number of years. We are a huge holding company, if you will, of 29 other brands in the home service business. We are the number one home service organization. You probably know some of the names: Mosquito Joe, Window Genie, Molly Maid, Mr. Rooter, Mr. Handyman, and I can go on. The list goes on. Essentially, we're 29 brands with over 5,000 franchisees, and we're serving 10 million customers across 9 countries. That's how big Neighborly is. So we are on target to own the home. That's our culture. That's what we want to do. We want to own the home from 3 perspectives. We want to own the home from a repair perspective. We want to own the home from a maintenance perspective. And we want to own the home from enhancing. Anything in those 3 pillars, Neighborly has an offering. It has a brand to meet the home service needs. We pride ourselves on our culture. We have a code of values that we leverage every meeting where there's a meeting of 3 people or more. We recite our code of values. The short form of it is RICH, RICH. Respect, integrity, customer focus, and having fun in the process. That's at the core of Neighborly. We're members of the International Franchise Association through the leadership of Brian Woods and Brad Stevenson. Brian Woods is our group VP, and Brad Stevenson is a Chief Development Officer. And all of our diversity work comes under Brian Woods and Brad Stevenson, and we're just so proud of their leadership. So Neighborly is committed to increasing its African American pipeline. We're just starting the work of, well, it's been started unofficially, but now we're starting the work in our diversity space, and that work again is being led by Brian Woods, and we are partnering with organizations like the HBCUs, um, uh, outreach programs, the chambers, and my work with J3. And so I have a owner that's going to be joining us, Eric Stewart. He's an owner of a Window Genie here in Killeen, Texas. And he's going to be joining us to share about his experience in being the owner of Window Genie. And I'll bring him up in the segment when he gets here. But to keep us moving along, Jack, should I just bring up Johnny maybe to talk about? He's working hard back there, guys. And I hate to interrupt him right now, but Johnny is our visionary leader for the J3 Collaboration Project, as you heard Jack mention. This is his baby, and we're just so proud of his vision and work alongside him as diversity champion myself, and Jack is diversity champion. So I want to bring Johnny up so you can hear a few words from him, and he can share more about J3 and then what we have on tap.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. coming from good morning. Yeah, still morning, right? It's morning somewhere. So in Portugal, it's already well into the afternoon. It's been a pleasure to be here with everybody. I know I've been communicating online, email, Zoom calls. Is finally being able to be in front of you and meet you face to face is always a privilege and a pleasure. On behalf of the J3 Collaboration Project, we have really had a fun time organizing this event and making sure that we have representation from the communities that we're a part of. I really enjoyed Carlos' words with grassrooted organizations that really take the lead as it pertains to making sure we have the right representation of leadership that can actually provide support, mentorship, and resources as needed. The barcode behind me is really allowing those here present as well as online. And when you watch this later, because this is being recorded and reshared, and you're going to have the opportunity to really benefit from everyone that's spoken today and all of those gems that have been shared. But it allows you, this survey, to really follow up with any particular guest speaker, panelist, myself included. And if you want to just have a follow-up conversation one-on-one, we can definitely set that up and organize it so that you can really take action. The idea of this, platform with J3 Collaboration Project isn't just information sharing, it's education. It's really providing the resources and tools and individuals that are actively engaged with individuals that are serious about business ownership, that just really need the resources at hand so they can kind of take those next steps. So if you want to just scan the barcode, it'll take you to the survey, real short and sweet. And this way we can reach out to you and we can set up, some follow-up items, because, time is now. And, if you've been really wondering, is this possible? The answer is yes. If you've been wondering, what do I need to do? Just click on this survey and start the process. That's what you need to do. And just follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and you'll find that what we're continuing to do, this is the first of many events under this Minority Franchise Ownership Initiative with Project 23. Thank you so much for joining us. This is only the beginning, and it's been a pleasure working with each of you, and I look forward to future engagements as well.
And wait till my tech guy get back in place, working double duty. So, Johnny, I think at this time we want to cue up Harrison, perhaps. Okay. 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 So Carlos, Anthony, Ursa, okay. Tim, everybody in the no, Tim. Sure, sure. Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you all so much for your participation in the program and for your thoughts, knowledge, and everything that you shared. So we wanted to spend some time with you from a panel perspective and just to ask some questions around franchise business ownership. And from each one of your perspectives. And then I can participate as well from a franchisor. But when we're talking about, I think we heard from Tony and a little bit from me that, I think it's top of mind right now with corporations, franchisors, to structure an incentive program for African Americans. And when you think about it from that perspective, we're thinking about, anything from incentivizing franchise fees, what have you. But without us guessing, what would be your thoughts around how that should be structured? Earsa, can you start us off?
Sure. I think that having the collaboration with organizations such as J3 is very important. So in my role at the Diversity Institute, I talk to lots of companies. I will say that in the last probably 3 years, I've seen more interest from large brands than I've seen in the past probably 20 years trying to figure out the space. For some of them, they've got to struggle with diversifying their internal staff and really trying to figure that piece out. So I've talked to some companies that have actually done the focus internally first. Hey, we've got to look internally. We worked with a company that actually started an internal kind of program where leadership started out training first, and then it was in all employee required training that they participated. And the impressive thing about it is they didn't just want to do a one and done. They said, hey, we want this to be a multi faceted program. This was over the course of several months. So that was a company really realizing that before they could externally go out and recruit, they needed to look internally. So they decided the internal look. Some of them are doing discount programs, but really and truly, I think that there's a gap between sort of putting a program together on paper and really reaching the folks. I think, Carlos, you suggested or hinted at the importance of really being on the ground, because I can tell you, I've talked to many large programs that have diversity initiatives and no one knows about it. I mean, it hasn't been effectuated. So the types of things that we're doing now, reaching the virtual audience, is really where it's at, because it doesn't matter if you create a great program on paper, it's getting the word out. So I think that that's the challenge. We talk about the information sort of deficit with people knowing about franchising. For those brands that have the initiatives, let's get the word out.
Yeah, great statement by Earsa. I think it's important to have someone, I mean, similar, if you look at Ursa's background with respect to the universities she attended as well as the universities I attended, we kind of have played on both sides of the ledger. What I see as frustrating, this is Carlos White speaking, I'm not speaking on behalf of my law firm, nor as franchise impact ambassador, is that we have a lot of these corporations, a lot of these companies, they diversity, it seems like it's a generic term. And we go hire someone to be in the lead of these particular initiatives that absolutely have no connection with respect to the group of people that we're trying to reach. So how are you going to be successful without having that insights and that nuance? So what we're doing is seem like we're paying a lot of consultants a lot of money that may not deserve the money. What we really need to do is to identify the real players, to identify the assets, right? Where you can basically be successful. Just like, I mean, not every city is great. I love Dallas because if you just think about with respect to the large number of franchisors, large number of franchisees, as well as think about how it's important to have diverse professionals like Earsa. That's very important to have diverse professionals like Carlos, your real estate, that actually cares about you, right? It's more than just, hey, I'm trying to get a sale. No, I want to make sure that you're connected with the ecosystem, and the ecosystem drives opportunities for everybody. So to me, any diversity program, I mean, incentives are great. I mean, there's a lot of tax credits businesses overlook because it's not announced, but that's not also the issue. What we also have to do is show that we actually care, and one ways of caring is showing what does your board of directors look like? How does your C-level? How diverse are you there to make sure that you have credibility? Like we're talking about financing a lot. I mean, since 1993, I remember under the Clinton administration, you know, we have these community reinvestment acts, but how much capital is really translated? So we have the laws in place. The question is, who's going to do it? And I'm the type of person and Marshawn Lynch is where I'm about that action, boss. So what I'm doing is identifying other folks that's about that action, and we're going to go on and make this, we're going to move the needle as opposed to talk about it.
Thank you for that. Did anyone else have anything to offer on
I have nothing close to that. but what I will say about William Chicken and IFA and some friends that we are getting the word out. because especially in minority neighborhoods, and being on the board of IFA and my commitment to Williams Chicken and the minority franchising, I try to get out to the history of our colleges and talk about franchising. Last month, believe it or not, Carlos and my frat brother over here, we actually had we in the same fraternity at one of our regional convention. Yeah, he's an other fraternity, but it's okay. but he was gracious enough to come to our fraternity to speak to some of the young college kids. And brother Tyson and I. So I came with the idea with the president of our chapter to let's start with the fraternity.
Yeah.
And because we'll have all the young guys in the room, because most of the time franchise is by accident. It's not something that you're gonna go to class. Well, now you do, but it's a free college that will teach something about franchise, a very maybe small chapter, something. And I always say it's a hidden jewel that where a lot of money can be made. So that's kind of where I am is trying to at least get the word out about the franchise. You know, we have our kids go to our historic Black colleges, and I didn't go to a historic Black college, but we need to give them opportunity, that there is an opportunity for a career, opportunity for a business, an opportunity to leave something, a legacy for your family.
Absolutely.
That we're missing, and that's some of the things that I'm glad to be a part of, and that I kind of focus on is how do we get the word out to our young men and women that's come up behind us. Because I remember my first convention, I got stopped at the door because my tag didn't look right to the guys watching the door. So, you know, I'm talking about about 2005, 2006, you know, I walked through the door and my badge said CFE. And the guy asked me, where did I get it from? So over the time, things have changed. I've seen IFA change. I've seen the franchise industry change. Didn't know Ursula. Met Carlos by accident because we had been in business for years. She probably didn't know about us because I'm quite sure she had knew about me. She probably called on me. So in your space, we have here something called Texas Mezzanine. You probably know Victor Elmore. They alone we chicken their first $1 million because we couldn't go to Chase. Well, we went. They said no. We went. Well, I can name a whole bunch of them, but that one sticks out because of the kind of money we was depositing in our bank. So these are some things that we're seeing changing that we need to help make a change. So that's why I take time out of my day to try to be a part, because if someone hadn't taken time out their day, then I wouldn't be able to be in this spot. So I just try to give back.
And I think what's important for the people that aren't in this room is just doing this, collaborating. And I think about so many businesses that I've came across in the last just 2 years alone that wanted to do fish or chicken. And we have to start sharing information in our community. Like, you don't have to be a solopreneur. The thing that makes it franchising so attractive for us to partnership is the support base. Yeah. I've never seen, as much as we talk about an argument between Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, none of those guys could have won a championship without a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward, another forward, and a center. So you have 4 other teammates. And so that's the thing that I like about franchising is you have a support base, you have a system of accountability that does not want you to fail. And so I think we have to start figuring out a way to drive franchising. One, make them affordable, let them know that it is affordable, providing capital means to help that, to make sure that they have everything they need in place, but to also make sure that it's attainable. Because typically when you see franchises, most in our community say, oh, you got to have $1 million. You got to have $500,000 in net worth. Let's start chipping away at that and saying, no, you just need the capital. We'll help develop you into a franchisee and maybe put that into a program, a 1 or 2 year program, because college education doesn't really teach you about business. Yeah. I got an executive MBA, started out in engineering. Nothing prepared me to own my own business and how to negotiate with a bank or how to even position my financials to even get a small line of credit. And so I think we have to start putting things in place, getting not only to the HBCUs, but getting into some of the community colleges where our students and our people are, to say, hey, let's start teaching about not just entrepreneurship, let's start teaching about franchising and the systems that make businesses successful and driving forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Jack and I at dinner last night, we were talking about the essential same thing, because what I see, I sit in the resale side of things, and Neighborly is one of the companies that has a resale team dedicated to not only bringing the franchise owners in, but we work with our sellers to value their business, get them listed when their time comes to exit and get that return on investment. So the type of person that's coming to buy do an acquisition, it's a different type of person than our community in a lot of cases. Not in all, but in a lot of cases. So when I think about that gap of how we're showing up versus our counterparts are showing up in there. I want to leave this business to my son or daughter. They're going to come in and buy the business. Or I built this business to 1.5 million, and now I want to sell it to someone. So it's a different. So how do we, other than the educational component, how do we fill that gap on just the space that we have to catch up to, understanding what this franchise business is all about?
We can't do it without the education. It ain't gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
We have to educate, then get into the finance and support. But if you don't know, you don't know. I always talk about you need to be in the room.
Yeah.
And they price conventions, seminars at a number where they know that most people are not going to write that check to be in the room. Then when you do write the check and get in the room, then they really want to know who you are and why you're in the room. So it's all about education. We'll never be able to get away from that. And we had to start investing in ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll go out and buy the Nikes, the Jordans, and the Gucci's and all that stuff, the BMWs, Ferrari, but you won't spend $2,500 to go to a convention so you can learn how to make a couple million.
Jennifer, can I add something? So I was just at a franchisor client's franchisee convention, and they asked the franchisees what they wanted to hear. And so they got a chance to add topics. One of their top topics was estate planning. There were a number of folks in the room who they were ready to pass the business on to a child. And they're already thinking about that. And most people, when I tell them that you need to be thinking about your exit strategy when you go into the business, they think that's odd. But you need to know, hey, am I going to be nurturing a son, daughter to take this business over? Is it going to be a manager now that's ultimately going to run the business? And so it was interesting that there were multimillionaires in the room, and many of them had been in that system, and they're going to be up for renewal, and they're wanting to renew but pass it on to a child. So I thought that was interesting. That was sort of an exclusive sort of group of people in the room, but we have to be a little bit more forward thinking. So when we're doing programming that we can push out to a virtual audience, maybe we consider estate planning, at least dropping the nugget on the front end.
Absolutely.
To back with it, I'm in the process of doing that now with Mr. Williams. His two sons work under me. I tell him, y'all mind retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So we're planning now, how do the boys take over? And that's when I'm getting them involved. Even my son, I'm getting him they're taking classes. They're working on their CFE, things of the sort, because it goes back to, again, education, being in the room. So when you do sit down with a financial guy or do sit down with an attorney, at least you have some idea what we're at. I tell you, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I do know how to go out and get help.
Right.
And I'll say Mr. Williams, he did give me flexibility to go out and hire help. When we moved from the CPA that started, we was his first client.
Mm.
And so we are growing, and it was hard to leave. But I can say, hey, I need you to give me more, because if I'm no, this is your specialty. I know a little bit more than you do, then there's a problem there.
Yeah.
So it gets back to you got to be willing to surround your people with someone that can help you do some things that you did.
I love that.
Yeah, I think also, again, Carlos speaking on behalf of myself, I think there is just so much information out there that people become overwhelmed. There's so many accelerator programs. There's so many incubator programs. Everyone has their own flavor on it. I think from an efficiency standpoint, we need more programs geared toward how do you help me find the right professional to help me? Because the problem is a lot of times with ownership, they're wearing too many hats, right? And they can't focus on growing the scale. So you need to be able to identify who can best help you grow and scale to be successful. I have 2 points, and I'm gonna mention Mr. Calvin Golden's initially. I had a concept in Atlanta which wanted to franchise their concept. They talked to Calvin because Calvin helped grow Wingstop. That's what you do. It's like, I have a network. This is what I'm gonna do. They developed their program in 2020. Actually sold 2 franchises to folks that were incarcerated. But in 2021, both had revenues over $1 million with $125,000 base. So they're very successful franchises. But they had the insights of a Calvin Golden that can assist. Now, on the opposite end, because my wife is from Atlanta, she knows a lot of folks, went to high school with a lot of folks in the music industry. I've had an opportunity with respect to a concept that they wanted to grow and scale. And I introduced the same people. I said, hey, you need to talk to Mr. Calvin Golden. They didn't want to listen, right? They think that this stuff is easy, they can do it themselves. And as a result of that, it's been 3 years later, we're still looking for that concept. So and the problem they ran into is like, it's too many people throwing too many things at them. So what we need to do with respect to this programming is to kind of make it easy, as well as more of the focus on, let's find you the right people, the right team, because you can't afford it internally. IBM, Apple, they have internal teams for this. You have to outsource it, right? So you have your Anthony with respect to financial capital raising, because that's important about how you grow, moving forward. Who's my construction person, right? Who's my real estate person that's gonna help me negotiate this contract? Who can help me negotiate this loan agreement? Those are the things. You need those team players, because you can't do that alone. Until we get to that point, then we're gonna continue to not be able to grow and scale.
I love it. I love it.
Jennifer, you said something. What made me think about it was the ecosystem and the pipeline. How do we get franchising and entrepreneurship down to the levels that it becomes a fabric? To me, I always think about capital. I think about business, and for our communities, and thinking about how do we build a train without a caboose. And so I think about, when I look at the next generation, we have to shut the TV off and start talking about business at the table. We have to start talking about the value of saving money. Tim said it. We spend a lot of money on shoes in our community. We spend a lot of time watching baseball, football, basketball. We're watching other millionaires make millions of dollars playing a game, and we don't recognize the game that we're playing as a game of life. We could do the same things that they do if we figure out what we're passionate about, and we take the educational resources, filter through the BS, and then say, hey, here's what I want to do, and just start exposing our children to it. My oldest daughter, she had the great fortune, and I'll say this and be quiet after. She had the great fortune of seeing me work in corporate America, being a young executive. Then she had the great fortune of seeing me acquire a company, and then work in multiple businesses, helping turn them around. And so by the time she got to college, she was like, Dad, I don't want to do this. I want to do what you did. But we don't talk to our children, expose them to things that will prepare them for the next 2 to 3, 4 generations. And so we have to start thinking about business and franchising, estate planning for the next 2 or 3 generations. When we start thinking about, I'm making decisions now for the next 50 years, we will start changing our community. And we don't think about that. But I also think about what Carlos said is very important. We also have to have our bullshit meter up too. Excuse my language. And start shooting people straight. And so I think about the pipeline. We have to start having those conversations downstream. And we also have to start exposing them. And even our families and our parents, we think about taking care of our parents and our families. We don't talk about estate planning. We just don't. We'll go to estate sales, but we don't talk about estate planning. So those are things that we have to think about: estate planning, but let's also think about planning, entrepreneurial planning when they're little and they're young. And so I have a rule for my children. We're not selling anything for anybody else. When they come home with those fundraisers, we absolutely not. I'll call them and say, how much do we need to donate or contribute to not do this? Because my children say, why? I said, because we're not getting pimped. Like, we're not going to be salespeople for other people. Like, if you want to do this on your own, let's go buy some candy. You take it back to the school and see how many people buy it. Seriously, we have to start changing the game. I mean, my daughter, one of my daughters, she played basketball. She said, Dad, the boys basketball team, they got T-shirts, they go warm-ups. I said, cool. The girls don't have it? She said, no. I said, let's go down. We got on custom ink and we created a T-shirt, took it back and said, go to school tomorrow, get the orders. We're going to sell the T-shirts for $20. All the girls ordered. You know what the school said after we got those orders? Oh, you can't do that. Well, you can't do that. It has to come through the school. We got these orders already now. So they're going to pay us. They don't pay us our money. We're going to deliver, but you have to understand, like, there's a market for those things. And so they got exposed at an early age. And so we have to do those things. And we have to talk about finances.
Yeah. I think that's a great segue to my next question. But you touched on something that popped into my head as you were speaking. It's a shift from being in consumer mode to merchant. Like, how can we make that shift from consumer to merchant? And it's for us, it's a cultural kind of thing. We're consumers. We're gonna boost the economy through paying for goods and services, but let's contribute in other ways. So that's what popped into my head. Great points, everyone. So you touched on Anthony. You touched on understanding financing. So if for folks listening out there, how should they start exploring financial options for franchise?
That's a multifaceted question. I think you have to you first starts in the mirror. Who are you as a person? And look at your own personal spending habits. You have to start calculating your own P&L at your own house. It's like, all right, am I profitable? Am I running my house profitably? Because if you can't run your house properly, how can you ensure that you're going to run a business properly? And so I like to share with people is your first business that you run is your household.
Mm-hmm.
Just point blank. I'm the CEO. I was a CEO of my household before I even became a CEO of any company or anything else. And so, because that's the first thing we're going to look at when we sit down, we're going to look at your financial health. We're going to look at the businesses, projections, and their health. And then do you have a banking relationship? We at AltCap, we look and say, have you been denied a loan from a bank? If you have, that kicks our antenna up and says, all right, how can we help this person?
Kicks your antenna up in a good way?
In a good way. In a good way. How can we help this person now? And the reason why we ask that is because we want to understand what are the challenges that they're having so we can get creative in how we design loan programs. But to answer your question, we look at the personal financials and how you save and manage money. Then that correlates into business, how you build your projections, mm-hmm. and how you look further out. Then we look and see what type of banking relationships you have, because we're not trying to circumvent banks. We're just trying to supplement banks because we don't provide all the other merchant services, cash management services that banks do. So we look at that, and we also, because we work with banks, we can refer businesses back to banks that we know do business with our communities. So I would think about personal finances, then your business finances, and your business relationships. And what I like to tell people is business is about people and math. How many phone calls are you away from somebody that can help you get to a yes?
Got it.
And 1 times 1 doesn't always mean 1. Sometimes 1 times 1 can be 3.
Yeah. So great point. My final question then to anyone that can answer this is a Dallas engaged event. So how would someone engage with the city of Dallas to move forward?
That's probably Carlos.
Yeah. the city of Dallas is comprised of their people, right? So I think anybody on this panel is, would be great people to contact. One of the things with respect to our franchise initiative is the importance that, look, we want Dallas. Dallas is an international city. And what we're trying to do is make sure that it's one of the global hubs with franchising. And to me, and the mayor also thinks, without bringing and looking into the fact that we need more diverse ownership from a concept standpoint, as well as a franchisee, how can you consider yourself a global hub, right? So one of the important things is like, how do you connect? I mean, we've heard that we have organizations that's mentioned already. I mean, we have Earsa, we have Tim here, you have the IFA that have members. I mean, Dallas is probably one of the largest, I want to say probably the largest hub for franchising in America. So it's a lot of resource. And then what we're doing with the Mayor Eric Johnson's franchise initiative is like, to the point, we're working with UNT Dallas, right, to develop various programs associated this for our large franchisors. We also have the workforce czar that's a part of that. So how does the workforce look like for franchises moving up? I mean, that goes from quick service restaurants to, we also have, a company that's a robotics company with respect to that provides cleaning. They can't find enough employees. So how do we develop programming? So working with the University of North Texas, Dallas, working with grassroots organizations that have contacts, with folks that had a concept that's been successful. Now it's let's go about growing this regionally, right? So making sure that we're keeping them connected. One of the things that we also have already had an overlay due to Mayor Johnson's initiative is, when he came in office, he developed a task force on innovation and entrepreneurship. What did that do? That brought the large ecosystem with respect to banks, CDFIs, and a lot of other partners to the table. So now that he recognized with this franchise initiative that now we already have the table set, now we can take full advantage of these particular opportunities to grow and scale. So just stay tuned with respect to what we're doing. We're getting ready to announce a lot of sessions moving forward with respect to the mayor's franchise initiative. We also developing relationships like with Atlanta. We have what we call the Maynard-Jackson pipeline, because Maynard-Jackson's a famous mayor in Atlanta. Hartsfield Jackson is the Maynard-Jackson part of it, but he was born in Dallas, right? We also have a mayor that's Dallas. So we're working also with grassroots relationships there, because we understand that we have entrepreneurs that either want to operate in Dallas or they might want to operate in Atlanta. Is those types of opportunities there. And what's funny is we did this within 8 months, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just about connecting the dots and working with the right people and having the right credibility. I'm really blessed that Tim, Calvin Golden agreed to be on the board, because they added a lot of credibility. We also have a gentleman by the name of Roland Parrish, who owns 26 McDonald's. That's a part of our organization. We also have the workforce czar. We also have a business owners, community activists. So we have a lot of support, and we have a lot of resources. And just stay tuned. The mayor likes to tweet a lot. Just follow his tweet. I definitely have a lot of information and press releases right there. So the city of Dallas is also the gateway internationally as well. So now we have relationships with folks that from Mexico or other countries that might want to franchise in the US, and we start talking about alternative transactions. Like we said, it's not always about loans. Sometimes it takes private offerings, right? Sometimes it takes E2 financing. A lot of people don't know that, right? So that's why it's our job to come and educate and have these sessions so that they know it, so we can create an ecosystem of opportunity which everyone can be fed.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you all for participating in the panel, and we appreciate the information that was shared. We're going to make a little bit of a transition now, and we're going to bring up Eric Stewart, who is the owner of Window Genie in Killeen, Texas. But thank you very much. So Eric, come on up and join us. And so Carlos was sharing about Dallas and Atlanta, and I live in Atlanta. I'm based in Atlanta, so I definitely can resonate with what he was sharing there, being the hub, and some really good roots there in Atlanta for franchising as well. And so Neighborly is headquartered here in Dallas. That made this a great event for us to come out and support the J3 initiative, and me being a diversity champion in J3 also made a great tie-in as well. One of the brands that I support under the Neighborly umbrella of brands is Window Genie. and I came across Eric Stewart, and this is our first time seeing each other in person. We've talked on the phone, so good to see you in person. And so we're going to hear about Eric Stewart's journey to franchise business ownership, and then some insights on how he's been successful. So I'll let Eric introduce himself.
First of all, again, Jennifer, it is a pleasure to meet you in person. Finally, we had some dialogue via internet and everything like that. So it's been great, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Again, my name is Eric Stewart. A little bit about myself: retired military, Army, 20 years, 28 days, 11 hours, 37 minutes. I enjoyed every minute of it. I wanted to do more, but God saw fit to bring me out of it. But evidently, I didn't get enough, so I went back as a contractor and did 6 years of contracting overseas. And all of that was in aviation. But I do have a thorough background: aviation, HR, and logistics, supply and logistics. So those are the things that I had in my back pocket. And so once I finished contracting, I decided to use some of those skill sets to find me a job. Well, believe it or not, nothing really came to surface that was beneficial to my skill set. And so one thing that I applied for one job, and it was a night manager at a car rental place at an airport. And I was like, who do they think I am? I mean, so with that being said, I decided to look at franchising, and it just came out of nowhere. I just seen an email that said, hey, would you be interested in franchising? So it was like at the right time. So at that moment, I went ahead and looked at some franchises and started selecting a few. And then next thing later, I got a call from a franchise broker, and the rest is history.
I was going to ask if you worked with a broker, or did you just self-explore your landing into Window Genie?
Yeah, I can honestly say if it wasn't for that franchise broker, I would have been still trying to find my way. The gentleman's name, never forgot him, Bruce Krebs. He was very, very helpful, navigated those waters for me. I mean, he was like, hey, sign this paper. Hey, call this person. Hey, check this email. I'm going to send you this, fill this out. So the broker made it so much easy for me, because eventually I'd have figured it out, but it'd have been like maybe 5 years later or something. So, yeah.
Yay for brokers.
Oh, yeah.
So as an African-American franchise owner, what would you say are some of the challenges you have faced in your journey, and how did you overcome those challenges?
I can say one thing for sure. Wasn't I guess you could say a speed bump, but it was eye-opening. Being a African-American franchise owner or business owner, when I used to show up to some of my customers' businesses or residents, they would say, so I spoke to someone named Eric Stewart. I'm like, yeah. And he said he was the owner. I said, yeah, that's me. And they're like, oh, so you're the owner? Yes, I'm the owner. So that was probably one of the most eye-opening things for me, because I didn't think that would be some kind of a blockage for other people. Hey, I know what I can do, and I'm going all in. But then when you get in front of these people and they're raising their eyebrows up at you like, oh, so you're the owner. So it just changes everything. And you can feel the dynamics of the whole room change once they realize that you own the business. So that wasn't a hurdle, but it was eye-opening for me.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you would show up at the house. So I want you to paint the picture of, as the owner, are you out there cleaning windows? What does that look like for you in the day-to-day?
When I first started out, at the time, it was me and my stepson. So yes, I was at the owner's house. They give us a call. We'll come out. We'll do an estimate. And then we go to clean windows or put up window tint and some of the other services that we provide. And so we would go out there, we'll do these jobs, and that's how it initially started out. And me, with my military background, I'm not going to tell you to do anything that I don't know how to do or I haven't done it already. And if I don't know it, then I'm going to learn it. So I didn't mind working in the field to figure out my business because I wanted to know all aspects of it before I hire anybody, or before, like the gentleman said, before you turn the BS on me. I like that. That right there, it just eliminates all of that. So I didn't mind working in the field. Now, I knew as a owner that I have to drive this boat. So I had to start taking steps back. And as I take a step back, then I hire someone, and then so on and so forth. So now 95% of the time I'm in the office running my business.
And what does your team look like now?
I have 8 employees. Office, now I'm looking for a new office manager, but operations manager, training manager, and then what we call technicians or service professionals that do the jobs out in the field.
He's being quite humble. I've looked at his numbers and he's quite successful. So when you think about others out there who look like you and us, who are entertaining franchise business ownership, what advice would you have for them?
Definitely have a passion for what you do. I didn't have a passion for window cleaning. I just had a passion for exercising my skill set. So I knew that it would be something in this scope. So my advice, don't just go into something or look at the numbers and say, oh, wow, I can make this much money. Let me go and do that. That's not what it's about. For me, I had to understand what I'm capable of and use those tools to make sure that I would be successful, as well as who I bring along to be just as successful as I am, whether it's mentoring or whether it's my employees, anything like that. I had to make sure that I was passionate about what I was doing. And so that's the advice that I would give any potential or prospective buyer of a franchise.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you have Army experience, you're a veteran. How has that contributed to your success in franchise business ownership?
I can tell you, military stress versus entrepreneur stress, 2 different things. It is military stress. You have something to fall back on. You have resources. For the military, they'll only let you go so far, and then, okay, we got you. You're okay. Whereas entrepreneur or having my own business, the buck starts and stops with me. So the stress was just totally different than what I was used to. However, I knew how to deal with stress. So my military background helped me learn different aspects of how to deal with stress. And that being dealing with stress for me, praying, meditating, going to the gym, working out, reading a lot, getting in the Bible. Those are the things that help me deal with stress on this side of it. Military side, go up, working out, fighting my soldiers on the flight line. No, don't publish that. If they get out of line, that's what I used to do. But no, those kind of things are just different types of stress. And I learned how to deal with stress via the military. And that's what helped me to go through day-to-day things, dealing with customers. I mean, you don't have to really deal with customers in the military. So that's the difference that I'm speaking of. Dealing with customers on the outside, you can be as right as night and day, but they're going to tell you the sky is purple. And guess what? It's purple. So I had to deal with that.
And so Window Genie is your first business opportunity?
Yes, Window Genie is my first business opportunity. I've kind of expanded on that. On the side, I was doing some subcontracting with construction and things of that sort. So, and believe it or not, with the, and you all know what I'm talking about with the certifications, black owned business, African American owned business, service disabled veteran business. All of those certifications, I acquired those, and what I did was start getting solicitations for requests for bids, and then I would find contractors to go out and do these jobs because I had all the qualifications, I had all the insurance. So I was doing that along with running Window Genie.
And it's been how many years now?
Almost 10 years now.
Okay, so 10 years, Window Genie, he's built out the team. So now, Eric, what's next for you?
I'm excited. I'm in the process of selling. Looking at have someone in the shoot right now that's really looking at it. He's very anxious, African American, very intelligent young man. But even if he does not move forward with it, there's still other potential buyers out there. So I'm not concerned with that. For me, my next move, believe it or not, is I want to be a franchise broker. So that's my next move. I've already started looking at some things, and I'm super excited about that because I get the opportunity to do what someone else done for me when I started, and I'm super excited about it.
So talk about coming full circle. That's really a testimony. And I'm working with Eric on the sale of his business, and I think that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight about his journey is that not only, we talk about getting into franchising or taking advantage of the franchise model, but also what you don't want to miss is the fact that you can build out your business and sell and go through acquisition and get your return on investment back and with some residual funds as well. So those were did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on that I did not ask?
No, I did not. I just want to say just again, thank you. And I hope I said something to enlighten you all or inspire you or however you see fit and something you can take back home with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Let's give Eric a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, what an exciting event we had today. So many nuggets of information. They're gems. That's what they are. So whether you're in the room, whether you're online, hopefully you will have benefited from this. We'll also have, because it was recorded, we'll also have a lot of mini snippets out there. And obviously you could benefit from that too. So what are we taking away? Well, we're taking away from this that there are individuals and people and organizations and roles and tools to help, whether they be from a funding standpoint or whether they be from a coaching or mentoring standpoint. And hopefully you also got a more clear understanding that franchising is a viable path to business ownership. We hope you enjoyed today's program, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.